Did you know that in Japan, so many people have lost their drive for anything that even sex has gone extinct? That's right. It's not earthquakes or tsunamis, but something much scarier. People have simply stopped wanting things. Want a promotion? Nope. Get married? Not that either. Let's just say no one even wants to test the bed's suspension, if you get my drift. Yes, the country of technology, robots, and realistic dolls is literally ceasing to function, and it's not a Wi-Fi issue. They live online but don't even want to log into someone else's body. Almost half of young Japanese people haven't had sex in over a year. And the weirdest part? Among those who've never married, half are still virgins. Yes, half. Thus, if you happen to be at a dinner with 4 Japanese people, 2 would be purer than holy water, and their hands more calloused than a bricklayer's. It's not a lack of women, but a lack of desire. Nobody wants to get married, have kids, or even get out of bed. The entire country is in a silent, clean, organized, and lifeless mode. And what's even crazier, they appear content with this situation. It's like a Zen paradise, but with Wi-Fi and without any hanky-panky. But has Japan actually gone crazy? Or is it perhaps the rest of the world that's desiring too much? The miracle that went wrong. To understand why Japan became this country where nobody wants anything anymore, we need to go back a few decades. Way back after World War II, Japan was in tatters. Cities destroyed, the economy in ruins, and a population that didn't even have food to eat. But then, something unexpected happened. In just a few decades, the country became a powerhouse. Japan began growing like crazy, 10% each year. Factories ran at full throttle, producing cutting-edge technology, cars, electronics, and robots. Everything originated from there. In the 80s, the average Japanese person was at its peak. It was like your typical American consumer. They toiled 14 hours daily, spent all their earnings, and were convinced that the future would consistently improve. And Japan indeed became the very center of the modern world. Toyota cars, Sony electronics, the first Walkman, Nintendo video games, remember? It seemed like nothing could stop that country. Tokyo was the epitome of success, neon lights, crowds, and money flowing like water. People wanted everything: house, car, status, family, success. It was an era of pure desire, but excessive desire turns into madness. Prices rose so much that a plot of land in Tokyo was worth more than entire U.S. cities. There was a time they said the Imperial Palace was worth more than all of California. Imagine the absurdity. Japanese companies became so wealthy that they began acquiring shares of entire companies across the globe. And believe me, that's no exaggeration, you know. They acquired stakes in New York's Rockefeller Center, Columbia Pictures, that's the Hollywood studio, and even Universal Studios. It truly appeared Japan was on the verge of global dominance. But then, the government hit the brakes. The central bank raised interest rates to curb excessive speculation and ended up killing the engine. The bubble burst. Stock prices plummeted, real estate lost its value, and thousands of people found themselves in debt overnight. It was a total collapse. The country that was a symbol of success became the perfect example that when greed is too great, the fall comes with interest, literally. But the worst was yet to come, because what was supposed to be just a temporary crisis turned into a hangover that lasted for decades. The never-ending decade. After the economic bubble burst, Japan didn't crumble, it simply froze. It was like hitting pause on a video and forgetting to press play again. The 90s kicked off with widespread layoffs, banks collapsing, and individuals transforming from paper millionaires to genuinely indebted all in a single day. The stock market crashed, real estate lost its value, and the people lost their confidence. But the crisis ended, the fear lingered. Japan entered a collective state of indifference. People no longer wished to risk, venture, or dare because those who tried got screwed over. That's when the famous lost decades were born, a nice way of saying the country spent 20 years going in circles, with no growth, no salary increases, no hope. And the craziest part is, this shaped the new generation. The children of that generation grew up hearing their parents say, don't spend too much, don't invest, it's risky. Work quietly and be grateful you're not fired. Imagine the effect of that on a child. They grow up thinking that dreaming is dangerous, and just like that, the generation of apathy is born. These people are now in their 20s and 30s and are the living portrait of a country that learned to survive but forgot how to live. Japan became a flawless storefront, everything clean, efficient, technological, but with a huge emptiness inside, a place where nothing goes wrong, but nothing ever happens. And this is where it gets bizarre, because when desire disappears, even love and sex go with it. The generation that ceased to desire, today, Japan is a nation where no one quarrels, no one shouts, and no one engages in sex. It's like living in a commercial for tranquilizers, everyone at peace, but kind of dead inside. Almost half of young Japanese people have never had a sexual relationship. Half of the single people are virgins. And the married ones? Well, let's just say that for many people there, marriage is more of a silence contract than a love contract. The country is so under control that even desire has gone into power-saving mode. People have traded touch for screens, love for apps, and flirting for emojis. Japan has become the birthplace for virtual partners, waifus, and otaku who are passionately in love with anime characters. And what's even crazier, you ask? They say they prefer it like this: no rejections, no fights, and no drama at all. But with the drama, emotion also vanished. Sex became taboo, love became a chore, and affection became a luxury. This generation doesn't want to marry, have kids, and often doesn't even want to leave home, literally. The hikikomori, young people who live confined to their rooms, are the perfect symbol of a nation that has isolated itself from its own desires. And the outcome? The birth rate has plummeted. Today, Japan sells more adult diapers than baby diapers. The future is literally aging, and it seems no one really cares. But wait, before we jump to conclusions that Japan is done for, we must grasp what truly lies behind it all. Because the issue there isn't merely boredom, it's how the system itself instructed its people not to feel. The economy of disinterest. Japan has become the only country in the world where the problem isn't inflation, but a lack of desire. Politicians are racking their brains trying to figure out how to make people want again. They cut interest rates, give out money, and offer bonuses for marriage or kids, but the result is always the same: nothing. They literally attempted to ignite desire through the use of spreadsheets. Like, if you make a baby, the government gives you a bonus. But guess what? Not even cash back could get the Japanese excited. Imagine growing up in a nation that once believed it would conquer the world, only to witness that dream dissipate into dust. The Japanese individuals born in the 90s inherited an exhausted Japan, a nation that once possessed everything, only to lose nearly all of it. When the economic bubble burst, it didn't just destroy the economy, it shattered their collective spirit. It's like a financial war trauma. Thousands of families watched their homes plummet in value, businesses close, and fathers dismissed after 2 or 3 decades of loyalty to the very same company. The country that promised stability suddenly showed that not even that was guaranteed, and this generation grew up watching it all unfold. They learned that success isn't just hard, it's dangerous, because the higher you climb, the harder you fall. So the logic became, don't dream, don't get frustrated. Today, Japanese youth are children of fear of risking, erring, or even desiring. They live in a world where even having hope has become a risky act. And over time, Japan adapted to this new way of life. A life without peaks, without euphoria, without drama, just stability. Stable jobs, predictable routines, and controlled consumption. No surprises, no risks, no emotion. Kenichi Omai, the consultant who studied all this, says the Japanese suppress their desires to reduce anxiety. It's almost poetic and sad at the same time. They deliberately suppress their desires, so they won't suffer from disappointment if those desires aren't fulfilled. And this is the Japan we see today as a result. A nation of 125 million people, existing in comfortable silence, with an economy that neither expands nor completely falters. Everything is merely sufficient. Would you like an illustration? Many young people opt to rent rather than buy a home, take the subway instead of owning a car, save money over investing, and watch anime and please themselves instead of pursuing romantic relationships. They chose the comfort of their established routines instead of taking emotional risks. And it's curious, because deep down, modern Japanese life seems like a metaphor for the bullet train itself. Fast, punctual, efficient, but always following the same track. No one deviates. No one takes risks. No one dreams. And if you ask them, but why not even try? The answer is cold, almost automatic. What's the point? But is this truly apathy? Or has Japan discovered something the rest of the world hasn't figured out yet? But could it be that letting go of desires is a sign of wisdom rather than a defeat? Wait, because now we are going to immerse ourselves precisely in that, the philosophy behind this phenomenon. What happens when an entire country decides to live without wanting anything and discovers that maybe this brings peace? The philosophy of not desiring. What if Japan isn't in an economic crisis? And what if the issue isn't really a lack of desire, but rather the excessive ambition that the rest of the world harbors? Think about it. Modern life is an endless marathon. Everyone's chasing success, status, the perfect body, perfect relationships, perfect trips, and in the end, no one has time to actually live any of it. We live with our desire at full throttle and our peace in the red. Perhaps Japan has simply grown weary of it all? This notion of desiring nothing more sounds quite peculiar to us, because we have been trained to believe that desire is the engine of life. But in Japan, this disinterest seems to have become an involuntary, almost Buddhist philosophy. Buddha himself said that suffering is born from desire. And consider the irony. While the West pays for therapy to control anxiety, Japan has simply ceased to desire. It's a practical version of nirvana. But not every Japanese person has become a Zen monk. There's a gap between wanting less and wanting nothing, and that's the confusion. Some people in Japan have consciously chosen to live like this, much like a modern Diogenes, the Greek philosopher who slept in a barrel and would say, "Look at how many things there are that I don't need." If he were born today, he'd probably live in a small Tokyo apartment, drinking cold tea and saying, "What's the point of a car when the subway is always on time?" Actually, speaking of him, there's an old story that perfectly explains what Japan is going through today. Back in ancient Greece, there were two types of men, one who wanted to conquer the world and another who just wanted to sunbathe in peace. The first was Alexander the Great, the king of Macedonia, the conqueror who would look at a map and think, this little piece here isn't mine yet. The second was Diogenes, the philosopher who lived inside a barrel with no luxury, no vanity, and apparently no baths either. He believed that happiness was found in wanting less. One day, Alexander resolved to meet Diogenes. Picture this. The world conqueror arrives, surrounded by soldiers, cape shining, while the other fellow lies on the ground, sunbathing like a lizard. Alexander approaches and says, all imposing, "I am Alexander the Great. I can grant you anything you desire." Diogenes looks up, gives a half smile, and replies, "Anything at all? Then do me a favor, step aside. You're blocking the sun." Total silence. The guards froze, but Alexander laughed, remarking, "If I weren't Alexander, I'd want to be Diogenes." In essence, one man possessed everything yet craved peace, while the other had nothing but was already at peace. This precisely is where Japan fits into the picture. A country that seems to have chosen the path of Diogenes, letting go of desire, living quietly, and embracing Zen boredom. But the rest of the world is still Alexander, always chasing more, competing, consuming, showing off. And Japan just lay in its barrel, with the sun beating on its face, waiting for the rest of humanity to grow weary. But then there's the other side, those who stop desiring, not from wisdom, but from weariness, from a fear of frustration, from feeling too insignificant to dream grandly. And that is the difference between peace and emptiness. One comes from choice, the other from giving up. And maybe Japan is wavering between these two poles, between the Diogenes who smiles in the sun and the Japanese man who sleeps silently on the subway. An entire country trying to figure out if living without desire is enlightenment or just well-organized depression. The most surprising thing is that this quiet philosophy is beginning to spread across the globe. The whatever generation doesn't just speak Japanese, it speaks Portuguese, English, Spanish, French. It's global. People are also getting tired of chasing after things that don't fulfill them. Ultimately, perhaps Japan is just the perfect mirror of what we are all slowly turning into. Individuals who possess everything, yet still sense that something is absent. And that brings up the persistent question, are they wrong for not desiring? Or are we the ones who are sick for desiring too much? The last desire. You know what Japan's problem is? It's not that they've lost their desire. They've simply ceased to desire what truly holds importance, for desire itself isn't the antagonist. The true villain is misplaced desire, the kind we adopt from others. For example, do you genuinely want that career, or is it the accompanying praise you seek? Do you want the new car, or the look from people who will think you're doing well? The truth is, many people there and here too are living on autopilot. They work, pay the bills, pretend to be happy, but deep down, they're just existing. And Japan is the perfect mirror of all this. A country that achieved everything and lost the why behind their achievements. People got used to not feeling, because feeling hurts, right? But living without feeling also hurts. It just takes longer to realize it. I also used to live that way, thinking I was doing well, until I realized I was just following someone else's script. The right job, the right plan, the right life, and a happiness that never quite arrived. Maybe that's what it is. Japan became the future the world is building, a future without chaos, but also without a soul. A place where no one cries, no one feels, and no one dreams, because no one wants to face frustration. But to live without wanting anything is the same as to die a slow death. So maybe the secret isn't having too much desire, or none at all, but having your own one that moves you but doesn't destroy you, one that makes you truly alive. And Japan? It chose silence. But what about you? What will you choose? And if you've made it this far, comment, passion. Just so I can be sure you still feel something inside at the very least. Oops, that's likely not what you have in mind, is it? Hey, so check out the video of this woman who turned 31, is single, and lives with her cat. Click on it before you become the next virgin on the block or end up as the crazy cat lady. Thanks, and see you later.